Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hot Mic Show. I'm live from Los Angeles. Bill Whittle here. And today we've got a very special program. We've got, at last, I think finally, some sort of explanation for the shocking, upset victory of Donald Trump back in November of last year. And this explanation comes, pretty much straight from the horse's mouth. I'm sorry. I apologize. That was unkind. Hillary Clinton has a book out, and she talks about her election loss. The book is actually called What Happened. I think you can see the print edition. Yeah, there we go. Now, this is the revised version. The version that she put together on the actual night of the election, the original cover looked like this, I think, that's basically how the book looked originally, and then they went to the newer thing. If you haven't heard yet, Hillary's been touring the country talking about her brand new book, What Happened. Yeah, there's the original version on the left and the redone version on the right. I have to tell you, sometimes I do things that I know are beneath me, and today is one of those days. Today's one of those days. I'm just gonna rollick in it. I'm just gonna roll in the mud with it because I find her to be somewhat unpleasant, and some of the gymnastics she's doing to explain why she lost the election are just kind of a kick. So let's just sit back and have ourselves a fine old time. Now, it turns out that the What Happened book, which is nothing but a series of 450 pages or something of excuses, is being savaged out there on social media. As a matter of fact, NRA's own Grant Stinchfield did a takedown of Hillary and Hillary's book and her excuse making, and we think it's good enough to play for you in its entirety.
Failed presidential candidate Hillary Clinton revealed the name of her upcoming book. She's calling her latest rewrite of history, get this, What Happened. Let me spare everyone the wait to find out what happened. Let me save you the anguish of having to read about the Russians, the FBI, the sexism, the unfair treatment by the media, and every other excuse America's biggest loser will come up with. And Hillary, since you still can't figure it out, let me educate you on exactly what happened. As Secretary of State, you slept through the night as Americans were trapped and outnumbered by Islamic terrorists at the Benghazi consulate for 13 hours. 4 brave Americans were murdered by terrorists because you couldn't even pick up the phone when they called for help. What happened? You blamed their deaths on a movie and then lied to their grieving parents. What happened? You couldn't even say the words radical Islamic terrorism. What happened, Hillary, is that you pretended to be a champion for women. But as First Lady, you personally destroyed the women your husband took advantage of, including a 21-year-old intern. Bill used her. You destroyed her. What happened? You put this entire country in danger by putting highly sensitive information on an unsecure server. What happened, Hillary, is that you obstructed justice by wiping more than 30,000 of your emails, then got away with it after your husband's secret meeting with Loretta Lynch. What happened was you lied and cheated and used your friends in the Democratic Party to defeat Bernie Sanders. You rigged the system, and it ticked most Americans off. Then you called Trump supporters deplorable. You alienated half the country. What happened is that people saw through your collusion with the mainstream media. What happened, Hillary, is that you came after gun owners and the NRA. You thought it was fine for you to have armed security. You thought we didn't deserve the same protection that you, your husband, and your daughter have had for 3 decades. You thought it was okay to wage war on gun owners at a time when Donald Trump vowed to defend the Second Amendment and gun owners. And we rallied around him. Hillary Clinton, you got lazy. You felt entitled. What happened? You didn't bother visiting Wisconsin or Michigan or Pennsylvania. Instead, you awkwardly danced at rap concerts and courted Katy Perry. Did you really think her fans would show up to vote? They didn't, Hillary. Here's what happened. You thought we, the American people, owed you the White House. You looked down at us like servants who were expected to take a knee at your coronation. You thought your decades of corruption, lies, collusion would never catch up to you. But on November 8th, it all did. That's when freedom-loving Americans rose up and said no more, when gun owners showed up in droves at the polls to defeat your tyranny by electing you-know-who, Donald Trump as our president. The country sent a collective message. We have had enough of the failed establishment in Washington. We will no longer tolerate the Clinton crimes, lies, and deceit. Our country is better than Hillary Clinton. So listen to me clearly. That's what happened. It took me a few minutes to lay it out. It takes you hundreds of pages of bogus excuses. Donald Trump beat you because America was hungry for an unfiltered, unbought outsider. Hillary, I suggest you take notes and then go back into hiding.
And that'll do it for the Hot Mic Show for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks very much for joining us. No, Grant pretty much made the case, you know. He made the case pretty convincingly, and that's kind of the official case, you know. I mean, that's the actual stuff. Those are the actual reasons that Hillary lost, and that's not so much what I'm interested in, to be honest with you. I think everybody knows why she lost. I think everybody knows that Hillary Clinton is just simply one of the most unpleasant people that ever ran for office. And as a general rule, she's got all of Bill's corruption and none of the charisma. So I don't think the list of actual crimes and misdemeanors that Hillary Clinton's committed over the course of her career came as much of a surprise to anybody except for Hillary Clinton. That's the person who was surprised by all this. And that's the thing I find most interesting and most surprising and most shocking. I find it really kind of alarming that this woman actually believes in some of the wild and lunatic explanations and excuses that she's been handing out. So we're going to get to some of those in just a minute. We're going to talk about some of the things that she's put on videotape in terms of the explanations for why she lost the election. But it's just, I don't know. Like I say, I'm just enjoying this so much. You know what? I think what I'd like to do is play the first of a couple clips here. We're going to see if we can maybe get some call-in people coming in on the line a little bit later. Oh, okay. I think actually it's going to be time for us now to take a call. Let's just go to a random caller and get the sort of the on the street opinion. Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Well, they wouldn't let me on the street, so I had to come in here.
No, get somebody else. Hang up on him and get somebody else. Andrew Klavan from the Daily Wire, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason I'm a little upset about this is because Andrew's just constantly filling up the phone lines here. Every time the show goes on the air, he starts calling, and he just won't go away until until the show's over. But I guess we're stuck with it. What the hell? Yeah, it's a lonely world out there, Drew.
I'm lonely.
Hey, buddy, did you see the video of the Jane Pauley interview that came out today? I think
this must be new.
Well,
Jane
you're about
Pauley
to.
Who? All right.
Jane Pauley and Hillary Clinton, two of the top names from the early '90s, out there talking about politics, and here's what I thought we'd do, Drew. I'm glad you haven't heard it because I just saw it and I was, it's hard to. Got to be careful how I say this. It's hard to imagine vomiting and having a bowel movement at the same time with things going out both sides. But that's really the reaction that this is going to make you really caused in me. So here's what we did. She had a 2-minute clip, which is appalling. And we broke it down into 4 little bits. So we'll play them one at a time, and then you and I can talk about them, okay? So she starts talking about the reasons that what happened, why she lost the election. And the first one has to do with a certain Mr. Comey. So let's play Hillary one here.
I went from, I think, 26 points ahead to 13 points ahead. And I needed about 18 points in order to be sure I could win Pennsylvania. I watched how analysts, who I have a great deal of respect for, like Nate Silver, burrowed into all the data and said, but for that Comey letter, she would have won. So it was very personal to me. I think my general election prospects were so badly damaged because of that even though I was starting to come back, it was not enough time to overcome it.
Drew,
I have
there's a
seen
river
this video.
in Egypt somewhere, isn't there? What's that?
I said I have seen this video. I didn't realize she was talking to Jane Pauley. I never saw the other side of the interview. It is a wonderful, wonderful video. It should be put to music, I think.
Here's the thing. She's blaming James Comey reopening the investigation a few days, about a week or 10 days before the election. And she's claiming that's the reason that she lost. So let's take a look at the scales of influence here. On one hand, James Comey issues a letter saying she might be under investigation again. That hurt Hillary's chances. On the other hand, James Comey decides that the woman is actually free to walk about on the streets instead of being locked up in federal penitentiary where she belongs. So it's kind of an even sort of a thing, isn't it, Drew? Kind of a trade-off, would you say?
You know, it reminds me of football games where one team fumbles and, you know, has interceptions and there are turnovers and injuries and all this stuff. And yet, nonetheless, they manage to stay in the game. And then the last play of the game, the referee maybe makes a bad call. And all they talk about is, oh, we lost because we made a bad call. Hillary Clinton was running against Donald Trump, who was a completely unprofessional politician, had baggage, you know, enough baggage to move his entire estate to another country, had all these, the press was just one scandal after another. Every word, just like today, every word that came out of his mouth was construed as scandalous. She lost because she had been dishonest her whole life long, and it started to come out in volume. You're absolutely right. She should have gone to prison for the stuff she did. Anybody else, you or I, would be behind bars this very day had we done the stuff that she did. And she's complaining that she got a bad break at the last down the home stretch. It's amazing. You know, let me put it in the most sexist, offensive terms I possibly can. You know,
Excellent.
we were looking to get our first female president, and we got that peculiarly female quality of never taking responsibility for anything. You know, I think that maybe we were looking for something else. It reminded me of that.
You and I spent a fair amount. I think we spent virtually all of the previous 8 years, just every day some new horror, you know, some soul-destroying news, some catastrophic, you know, attack on everything we love, and so I mean to get revenge for that, Drew. You may not have known this, but apparently I found out today that, and I'm not making this up, that apparently Hillary bought the house next to her own, so because she knew that she's going to need room for her presidential staff.
Now I know you're not laughing at another person's discomfiture just because the woman
because that would be very wrong.
That would be so wrong. I mean, just because the woman sold her soul to Satan to win the presidency, she let herself be humiliated first by Bill Clinton and then by Barack Obama. She did everything. She sold government favors. She did everything she could her whole life. She sold every wisp of integrity or honesty to win that office, and then got humiliated by a guy who had never run for anything and who went on tape talking about how he grabbed women. How anyone can not believe in God or at least karmic justice after that, I don't know. It just is. This was clearly a supernatural event of the first water.
You know, it's funny because I haven't read the book, and I don't expect that I will. However, when you talk about not believing God, I actually think it's kind of ironic because I think that is, in fact, the most likely explanation, and it's the one that Hillary should have had to face up to the most. You know, she should have simply said the book should have been What Happened, and it's one page on the inside, like a bit like our friend Mike Knowles' book, Reasons to Vote for Democrats. And What Happened opens up, and then on the inside of the first page is one sentence in caps, and it says, "Apparently, God still loves America." That's it. That's the whole book.
I know, and also that, like, it turns out that Satan actually is the father of lies, and just because he promises you the presidency doesn't mean he's going to deliver. You know? You may be left with your soul in your hands and no presidency.
There were many times over the last 2 decades where I actually thought that Satan had sold his soul to Hillary Clinton. To be honest with you, that's actually what it felt like to me. Let's have a look at reason number 2. What's behind door number 2 on the cavalcade of excuses?
But even though that was the primary blow to my campaign at the very end, it has to be looked at in context with the Russians weaponizing information, negative stories about me, this whole WikiLeaks beginning to leak in early October of John Podesta's emails, which if you've read them all, they're pretty anodyne, but they were taken out of context. Stories were made up about them.
Yeah, those John Podesta's emails, if you've read them all, and we have, as it turns out, we have. We read the parts where John Podesta, Hillary's campaign manager, said, let's hire some people to go to Donald Trump rallies and start fights, and then we'll blame it on those racist Nazi Trump supporters. That's one of those anodyne emails that I read. And by the way, Hillary, you and Podesta and all the rest of them, none of you ever denied it. You just said it's the Russians who got the information. Never denied it was true. So what about that, Drew? Do you think it's all those made up stories in anodyne emails from John Podesta that cost her the election?
Well, as you say, the emails were humiliating because they showed what a low mindset the Democrats had. First of all, they weren't hacked. Podesta gave away his code, right? He was phished. He gave away his password, and they got onto it. And secondly, this is something that really bothers me. The FBI has never seen this computer, so we don't know who did what. And this whole Russian thing, look, I'm sure that the Russians do everything they can to affect our elections. I do not believe that Vladimir Putin had any way of knowing any more than anybody else who was going to win. He must have thought Hillary was going to win. So if he was doing anything, it was to undermine the credibility of who he thought was going to be the next president. He could not have known that Trump was going to win because nobody knew that Trump was going to win. So the entire narrative of the Russians is, as far as I'm concerned, a complete nonsense. It's not that they don't do stuff. We do stuff to them. It's that it has been pretty well shown that they had no effect on the outcome, that there's always bad stories going back and forth about candidates. So I don't even know what she's talking about at this point. And the only thing that gives me pleasure here is the idea that Bill Clinton, if he ever is at home, has to listen to these constant muttered excuses so that he must at this point be drowning himself in scotch going, all right, Hillary, you lost. Shut up already.
Yeah, I'm sure Vladimir Putin wanted her to lose. She's the one who gave, 25% of our uranium supplies to the Russians in exchange for a measly $100 million. And Donald Trump is ready to go toe-to-toe with the Ruskies in nuclear combat. I don't know. It seems like he might have picked the wrong horse. Go ahead.
When you see the results, Trump has been legitimately tough on the Russians. Putin is not happy about it. The only thing they score Donald Trump on is that he won't call Putin names to show how tough he is because he wants to be able to sit down and talk to the guy. And look, I think Putin is a very, very bad hombre. I do not think that he's a good guy. But, he's being a little bit diplomatic, but he's certainly not being nice. He's not being kind to them. Remember, Hillary Clinton was the one with the big red button. Remember the big red reset button?
Yeah.
She went over and it didn't even say reset on it.
Which was mistranslated.
I know. So Putin was probably thinking this woman is too stupid to be president.
That's right. If I'm Vladimir Putin, a great white shark that just eats foolishness for breakfast, and you've got a Secretary of State who comes to me with a toy button and she can't even translate one Russian word correctly, that's who I want to be president of the United States. Let's go to number 3.
We now know Facebook was taking money from Russian companies to run negative stories about me. If you look at all of this, yes, it affected me and my campaign. But I am more concerned now going forward that we haven't come to grips with what it means for future elections.
I had to put a little pause there, Drew, because it's so well known how Facebook does nothing but suppress liberal and Democratic politicians in order to promote the conservative message. So I can see how that would be a big part of her loss there.
She had everything, like every Democratic candidate. She had the entire media, the entire mainstream media, which still to this day, in spite of shows like this and the Daily Wire and all this, they still have the mainstream of power. They still are controlling the narrative. We're still hearing about Russia, though it's a nonsense because they control it. She had everything. First woman president. Oh my, that has got to be one of the holy grails of the left. She had Barack Obama, who was a failed president, but not an unpopular president. People liked him personally, and he was backing her to the hilt. She had a fractious and undependable opponent, who was even embarrassing the people who liked him, was doing things that made the people who liked him unhappy. What did she want? What did she want? Like a carpet? Just she wanted to be crowned. I mean, everything was in her favor. Everything was in her favor. And she did the tortoise and the hare thing. She thought she was so far ahead. She sat by the side of the road and smoked a long cigar, and Trump buzzed past her. It was an absolute, may have been the biggest upset. I hate to sound like Trump, but it may have been the actual biggest upset in American political history. And for her to blame everybody but herself just shows you that she didn't really have the character to be president. That is not what a president does, is blame everybody but himself.
No, the win was huge, biggest win ever. But and by the way, it's interesting you mentioned tortoise and the hare, because we'll go to the fourth clip, and the collar that she's wearing reminds me very much of that outfit that Dana Carvey when he did Mr. Turtle. You remember that? You'll see what I'm talking about. All right, so here comes Drew. Here, the Russians, Facebook, Comey, all the rest. These are really just surface problems, froth on the top of the deep ocean. The real reason she lost, I hope you're sitting down, Drew, here it comes.
I would also add that the voter suppression that we now know had been in the works and really put into effect in a lot of states like Wisconsin, North Carolina, et cetera, played a role. And then let's not forget sexism and misogyny, which are endemic to our society, and certainly, as I write in my chapter called On Being a Woman in Politics, have to be factored in as well.
Drew, I'm going to ask you this sincerely now. I'm not joking around. I'm in dead serious here.
All right.
She's just barking mad, isn't she? She's just barking mad.
In all seriousness, I seriously do think that losing that Democrats are so certain that they are not only going to win, but they deserve to win, that it is written in stone that they will win, that they go a little insane when they lose. If you look back at Al Gore was never like the sanest guy, but you could sit down and he looked like a guy you could sit down and have a conversation with. After he lost, he became this raving environmental lunatic, talking about things that make absolutely no sense. He's still, pushing a film, touting a film that has been proven wrong in every respect. He grew that tremendous beard, remember? He just went nuts, and I think, I don't think you're far wrong. I think Hillary has lost. Look, this is her life. This was her life. There is no question about it. This was her life work. She put everything on one roll of the dice, and she lost in the most humiliating way. It is absolutely possible. I do not know what else could have happened except to have her skirt blow over her head. That would have been more embarrassing and humiliating than this political loss. And I just want to take one time to say, in all seriousness, it's the funniest thing I ever saw in my life. It was so gratifying.
Absolutely.
I'm glad I lived to see it. That's.
Me too. I'm glad I lived to see it. I feel like the country owed us that after all the work we did fighting Barack Obama for all those years. So, Drew, I'm wondering. I'm kind of serious about this too. Do you think late at night, in the dark hours of the morning when she's lying in bed pretending to be asleep and Bill's slithering out, pretending that he's being quiet, do you think at those moments that it ever does sink into her that it's her, or do you really think that she really believes this? Because I'm kind of inclined to go with B, to be honest with you.
Oh, yes, I think she does. I think, first of all, the fact that she can't hear herself, it's not just us. We get you and I are getting a lot of glee out of it that maybe the left doesn't get. But the left wants her to shut up, too. The left the left is embarrassed by her. They're saying this book tour is the last thing the Democrats want. The last thing they want is they're maundering on about this, they're already dragged themselves down through Barack Obama's failures and their own malfeasance, to have her wandering around going, and here's another reason why I lost, damn it. I don't think is the best thing in the world. The fact that she can't hear herself, what she sounds like, what it sounds like, and even though people keep writing about it, she cannot see herself. That really does indicate to me that she is not only dead serious, but compulsive at some level. That not only does she believe what she's saying, but she can't stop saying it, even though it would be good for her and her career and her image and her party if she would.
Yeah, just real quickly now, before we go, just looking forward instead of backwards, I'm curious what you think about her prospects for 2028 or maybe 2034. In 2042, she'll only be 90 years old, and with a newly anodized outer hull and some software upgrades, Drew, you could be looking at a contender here.
I think so. And, that is one thing you get when you sell your soul to the devil. You become immortal. It fortunately turns out not to be as pleasant as you thought it was going to be. So I think that what may happen is she may run for the next century and lose every race to increasingly unlikely candidates. That would be my guess.
Yeah, well, if there is indeed a loving God in heaven and there or some form of karmic justice or both, you and I can both go to sleep at night knowing that Bill has to go to sleep with Hillary and Hillary has to go to sleep with Bill. And I think that's all the revenge that anybody could ever ask for. Andrew Klavan has the Andrew Klavan Show over at the Daily Wire, which is about a mile down that way, I guess, something like that. It's good to see you, Drew. I know you got to start calling in for the Rush Limbaugh Show and see if you can get on there and get a little more attention. But
anyone will talk.
Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, anybody. It's been fun, pal. We'll see you later.
It's great seeing you. Bye-bye.
Folks, when John Kennedy died, not long after he died, they did a retrospective of him, and it was called Johnny, We Hardly Knew Ye. It was a book that came out. It was memoirs of John Kennedy. Johnny, We Hardly Knew Ye. And it was quite a touching book. There you go. Because we didn't get to know John Kennedy as much as some people would have liked. Some people thought we knew him well enough, but he left a lot of people missing him and feeling like there was a lot about Kennedy that they might have known or that he could have gone on to be. I think the Hillary Clinton retrospective should be, Hillary, go away. We know you too well. Please just go away. If there's ever been anything that's been as worn out in American life, it's this person who was there for the whole Bill corruption and disgrace. But then Bill went away. And now Hillary's probably going to go away as well. I don't think I've ever had more fun on television than I did during that last half hour. It's not very nice to wallow in other people's misery, but she created so much of ours, it only seems fair to me. That's just my take on it. Thanks for joining us. I'm Bill Whittle. This is the Hot Mike Show, and we'll see you tomorrow right here on NRA TV.